Greetings, seekers of the hidden and the ancient. Welcome to Ancient Chronicles AI, where forgotten worlds, sacred mysteries, and cosmic truths come alive through AI-driven storytelling. Prepare your mind, steady your spirit, and step with me into the unknown. Have you ever heard the story of the Tower of Babel? It's one of those ancient tales that feels larger than life. A massive tower, reaching for the heavens, built by a unified humanity, only to come crashing down, leaving people scattered and speaking different languages. For centuries, we've heard it as a story about divine punishment for human arrogance. But what if there's more to it? What if the real story behind the collapse isn't just about hubris, but about the very foundations of civilization itself? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of myth and look at the Tower of Babel not as a simple fable, but as a powerful metaphor for the rise and fall of great societies. Let's start by revisiting the story from the Book of Genesis. After the Great Flood, humanity was one big family. They all spoke the same language and worked together. As they migrated eastward, they settled in a plain in the land of Shinar, which historians generally agree corresponds to ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Here, they decided to do something spectacular. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." Notice that key phrase, make a name for ourselves. This wasn't just about building a tall structure. It was about creating a legacy, a central point of power and identity. They used baked bricks and bitumen for mortar, a technological innovation for the time, showing their advanced skills and ambition. The tower they were building was likely a ziggurat, a massive terraced pyramid common in ancient Mesopotamia. These weren't just buildings. They were religious and administrative centers, connecting the earthly city to the celestial gods. The famous ziggurat of Ur, or the Etemenanki in Babylon, are real-life examples of what the Tower of Babel might have looked like. So you have a united people, a common language, and a shared goal. They are building a mega-project, a symbol of their strength and unity. It sounds like the perfect recipe for a successful civilization, right? Well, according to the story, this is where things go wrong. God comes down, sees their city and tower, and says, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." And just like that, the project grinds to a halt. Communication breaks down. Frustration and mistrust replace cooperation. The workers can no longer understand each other's instructions. The grand vision collapses, and the people scatter across the globe, forming different nations with different languages. A city is named Babel, which sounds like the Hebrew word for confused. For a long time, the takeaway was simple. Don't challenge God. But what if we look at this story through the lens of history, sociology, and economics? Suddenly, it becomes a brilliant allegory for the inherent challenges of large-scale societies. Let's think about the one language. On the surface, a single language seems like a massive advantage. Perfect communication, no misunderstandings, pure efficiency. But is that really how human societies work? When a civilization grows too large, too centralized, and too uniform, it can become fragile. Think of it as a monoculture. In agriculture, a single crop might be highly productive in the short term, but it's incredibly vulnerable to a single disease or pest. If something goes wrong, the entire system can collapse. Diversity, on the other hand, creates resilience. In the story, the confusion of languages can be seen not just as a punishment, but as a mechanism for survival. Forcing people to break into smaller, more diverse groups allowed humanity to explore different environments, develop different skills, and create a variety of cultures. This linguistic and cultural diversity is like a safety net. If one civilization fails, others can thrive. It prevents a single point of failure from wiping out all of human progress. Now, let's consider the tower itself, a massive, centralized project. What happens when a society pours all its resources, manpower, and identity into a single endeavor? It creates immense social pressure. Imagine the logistics of feeding, housing, and managing a workforce of that scale in the ancient world. Any disruption of famine, a plague, or a resource shortage could bring the entire project to a standstill and cause widespread social unrest. Historians see this pattern repeat throughout time. The Great Pyramids of Egypt, for example, required an incredible concentration of labor and resources. While they stand as monuments to pharaonic power, the immense cost undoubtedly strained the old kingdom's economy and may have contributed to its eventual decline. The same can be said for many megaprojects in history. They symbolize power, but they also represent a huge risk. The Tower of Babel story perfectly captures this dynamic. The project that was meant to unify them became the very thing that tore them apart. The breakdown in communication is also a fascinating aspect. It wasn't just about language. When a society becomes too large and complex, communication naturally breaks down. Bureaucracy emerges. Different social classes and specialized professions develop their own jargon, their own priorities, and their own worldviews. The leaders at the top of the tower might have a grand vision, but the workers at the bottom are dealing with the day-to-day realities of mud, bricks, and a dwindling food supply. This gap between the elites and the masses, between the vision and the reality, is a classic cause of societal collapse. People start feeling disconnected from the central purpose. They no longer understand why they are making such great sacrifices. The shared language of purpose and values is lost, even if they technically still speak the same tone. The confusion at Babel might be a metaphor for this social and political fragmentation. People are no longer on the same page. They stop trusting their leaders and each other. So, the collapse of the tower wasn't necessarily a divine lightning bolt from the sky. It was more like an implosion from within. The project's own immense scale and ambition created the conditions for its failure. The over-centralization, the lack of diversity, the logistical strain, and the breakdown of social cohesion. These are the real bricks that came tumbling down. This interpretation doesn't take away from the spiritual power of the story. Instead, it enriches it. It shows that these ancient writers had a profound understanding of human nature and the cycles of civilization. They observed the world around them, the ruins of fallen empires, the diversity of peoples, and crafted a story that explained it in a powerful and memorable way. They saw that unchecked ambition and the pursuit of uniformity at all costs could lead to disaster. Think about it in our modern world. We are more connected than ever before through the internet, creating a kind of global village. We have dominant languages like English, code, and finance that allow for incredible global collaboration. We are building our own modern towers, global financial systems, vast supply chains, and continent-spanning tech platforms. But are we also seeing the warning signs from Babel? We see growing inequality, political polarization, and a sense of alienation where people feel disconnected from the giant systems that govern their lives. We see how a disruption in one part of the world, a pandemic, a war, or a financial crisis, can send shockwaves through the entire global system, precisely because it is so interconnected. The story of Babel serves as a timeless reminder that unity without diversity is brittle, and ambition without wisdom is self-destructive. The story isn't a condemnation of ambition or progress. It's a call for balance. It suggests that a healthy, resilient humanity is one that is both connected and diverse, united in shared values, but free to express them in a multitude of ways. The scattering of people from Babel wasn't just an end. It was a new beginning. It was the start of a rich, complex, and messy human story, with all its different cultures, languages, and ideas. And perhaps that beautiful, chaotic diversity is a far greater achievement than any single tower could ever be. So the next time you hear the story of the Tower of Babel, look beyond the simple moral of pride and punishment. See it as a sophisticated commentary on civilization itself, a warning about the dangers of over-centralization, and a celebration of the resilience that comes from diversity. It's a story that's just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest stories, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the fascinating connections between myth, history, and our modern world. Let me know your thoughts on the Tower of Babel in the comments below. See you next time.